the message is more important than the production. The message is so much more important than the production. What if I just acted as if the message was the most important thing? I'm officially the pastor of the Fourth Church of the Holy Goldfish. It's a joke that keeps on giving, but it really is about taking responsibility for your own spiritual journey. And I thought, I'll just admit to what it is. It's going to be a raggedy podcast, and I'm not going to probably do production and a whole lot of editing. And so there'll be background noise and technical difficulties. But at the core of what my work is about is how do we connect with our heart and with our passions and do the healing work so that we can live differently in a way that feels loving and life embracing. And that's important to me. And that's something I'm passionate about. Like many things that have started in my life, I decided to do a thing called the Holy Goldfish Commentary. It will be a Raggedy Podcast Production. I hope you'll come along the journey. Who knows where it'll take me? Sometimes life motivates me in a string of thoughts and events that happen. It's usually not a straight line, but it's more like breadcrumbs that if you tie the strings together, I get a whole message and motivation right out of life. Well, this morning was no different. I was sitting, eating a little bit of morning snack. I'm not going to call it breakfast, but drinking a cup of coffee and having a pre-breakfast snack. I was sitting in a chair that looks out my front window into the trees and in the park that's in front of my house. And real life, I needed to refill my propane tanks. And I have a ritual. I'm consistent. Mr. Pedro is my man. Senor Pedro is one of several people that come by my neighborhood. And they come in trucks that play this smooth jazz music, but like piped through what an ice cream truck song would be. And this smooth jazz lets you know that whenever you hear that sound, the gas man's nearby. We use propane here for a lot of things. For me, I use it for cooking and for heating my water and for my dryer. And I could walk my tanks down to the corner store, and for $1.65, they'd replace my tanks. But I prefer my guy, Senor Pedro. And as I was sitting here, I didn't quite hear the music, and maybe I was lost in my own thoughts, or maybe the volume was just turned down today. But as I saw him looking up to my apartment. My flat is on the second floor, and there's a regular thing that happens when Mr. Pedro comes by that I notice on mornings that I'm in the kitchen. He looks up at my window, overlooking the street in front of my house. And this morning, as I was sitting with the sunshades pulled down, I could see him, but it was probably difficult for him to see me. But I saw him look up towards my building. And I put my cup down and ran to my patio, and in animated, childlike fashion, Senor Pedro! As he passes my house, he hears my voice. He stops his truck. He backs up, and we exchange good mornings and how are yous in my best morning Spanish. He backs up, and I tell him that I need one of my tanks replaced. And I run to get my wallet so that I can find the coins to total up to $3. He comes up. He replaces my gas. We hug. I wish him a good day, and he wishes me one too. And he leaves. But there's a backstory that plays through my mind each and every time I see Mr. Pedro. It was many months ago now, on one of the regular occasions where I needed to replace one or several of my propane tanks. And I remember as we were walking down the stairs from my flat, me greeting him and bidding him goodbye, and I used his name. He had told me his name, and we had talked about that and the equivalent of the English version of Senor Pedro. And I committed his name to memory. I'm bad with names. I'll forget your name as soon as you tell me. But there's some names that stick. And after having that conversation, and I repeated it in my mind several times and used it in conversation with him several times, on that particular visit, as we were going down the stairs, I mentioned him by name. Thank you, Senor Pedro. He stopped, and with a heartfelt gesture and a pat on my shoulder, he said to me, thank you for remembering my name. Every time I see him, I think about that. And every time I think about it, it brings tears to my eyes. Sometimes they fall, sometimes it just wells up. But something as simple as me remembering his name was important to him. He made notice of it, and he thanked me for that simple gesture of relationship. So this morning was no different, but as I thought about that this morning, I also remembered a post that I had seen just a few days ago. It was on Instagram, I think. And as I went to go look for that post this morning, the post was talking about people and the simple things in life. I went back and I found it, and it said, the older you get, the more you realize it's not about who knows you the longest. It's about who makes you feel seen, heard, understood, appreciated, supported, and loved. I thought about that this morning. And then so often as my thoughts wander, partly because I've got the time and partly because I like to think about stuff, I went back in a nostalgic way to my childhood. I'm a 70s baby, grew up in the 70s and 80s and coming to age in the 90s. And one of the TV shows that was popular back in that time was a television show called Cheers. And as I was thinking about Mr. Pedro this morning and that idea of thanking me for remembering his name and how important that simple thing of connection was for him and now for me, I remembered the theme song. And at first I only could remember the tagline, where everybody knows my name. And so because I have technology at my access and Google is my friend, I said, what is that song? I know the tagline and I know the feeling of the song, but what's the song say? What's the rest of the message that song might be guiding me to this morning? And as I pulled up that song and listened to the whole song, the words were saying something very simple. It wasn't a song about judgment, but it was saying life happens, real life. The kids are doing the most. Life is doing the most. Bills are doing the most. My therapist done left. The man in my life done left. This, that. Things in life just happen. And then it says, and don't you want to go to a place where everybody knows your name, where they're always glad you came? And I thought about Mr. Pedro. How simple it is that something as simple as being acknowledged and appreciated. That meme from the internet says it's about who makes you feel seen. He looks for me when he passes my house, and I'm looking for him on mornings, especially when I need propane. But I'm looking for him on the other mornings too, and I'm trying not to wave too aggressively when I see him looking up at me and we make eye contact, because I don't want to stop his flow and think that I need propane. So I wave lightly so that he knows that he's been seen. heard. He was listening. He had his window down, so that even though he had passed my house by the time I wound myself to my patio to holler at him, he was prepared so that if I called, he could hear. And we've done this so often that when he sees me in motion or probably hears the noise, he knows that's LaRahna. She's calling for me. She saw me or she heard me. He understood exactly what I needed. Did I need a tank to my back cage, or did I need a tank in my house? I have them in two different places. One I have specifically dedicated to my heater. He understood exactly what I needed. But I hope that he felt appreciated. He felt appreciated because he knows that I'll wait several days until I see him. He's my guy, even though we may have 2 or 3 others that come past my window on any given morning or afternoon. But that, for me, is the support and love of community and of connection. That's, to me, the feel of community. That feeling encouraged me. The idea that we want places where everybody knows my name, where I'm seen and heard and understood and appreciated, supported and loved. And as I began to close that thought and move on to something else in my day, I thought, that's why I build communities. I retired to build communities that provide that we bring our technology and our understanding of commerce and the necessary components that provides. But the core of all of that motion is about creating places where everybody knows our name, where we're seen, where we're heard, where we're understood, where we're appreciated, where we're supported. And really, all of that is about being loved. And so this morning, my reminder to myself, my encouragement from life today is, don't forget that people remember when you remember their name.